of us, which kind of is every single one of us. Well, we will be navigating the complexities of inflation, unemployment, the rising cost of living, and it's essential to scrutinize how our leaders have reacted to these challenges, from their fiscal policies to their social intervention, the measures that have been implemented, and talk about the effectiveness of these policies. Are we seeing real progress and its impact on the ordinary Nigerian? We'll also explore certain critical areas like recent allocations, foreign investment, and also initiative aimed at boosting local businesses in the country. Well, for the conversation, we have in the studio joining us virtually Babatunde Erinjogunla. He's a public policy expert and a financial consultant. He joins us via the phone this evening. Sir, it's a pleasure to have you. I want to have laid that particular foundation so people understand the angles that we would be exploring as we proceed with this conversation. I highlighted the policies that have been made, the interventions, the distribution of rice that have been put in place to minimize the hunger that is biting at this time, especially the vulnerable Nigerians. And so we want to talk about first how we got to this point where we became a country of palliatives. May 29, 2023, sir, it sort of marked the start of a sudden spin in our economic trajectory in Nigeria. We had the twin policy of subsidy removal and the floating of the naira. And this is not to say that our many woes started 16 months ago when this administration came on board, but I want us to start the conversation by establishing all the events that has led us to this point, maybe including the decisions that our past leaders have made. Let's start like that, sir.
Yeah, one with a lot of historical, background to it. But just for us to have a clear economically, and government has a responsibility to, care for the people. And that is why you see government coming in with all sort of policy measures that proper policy will be put in place, or effort will be put in place by the government to actually treat the cause of the problem. So all of the things you're seeing today are just what they call the palliative. Palliative is in need of care who may actually not survive the coming of COVID-19 and how things, developed around that time. And fast forward to now, we can see that we're just using that term or the experience of that time to solve the problems of today. And we have today just to lessen the pain on Nigerians. So that's just what I want Nigerians to understand. Government will now do proper policy.
I really wanted us to start from how we found ourselves in this situation. We're still going to talk about the decision to share rice, to give, to make cash transfers and all responsible for the problems that we have right now. It's a build-up from all the decisions that our past leaders have made. So how did all of this come together and become this huge, hydra-headed problem that we're now currently dealing with under this?
Building a nation. I think people going into government and those that are what I call the engine room of the government itself, the bureaucracy, appear to just not to be intentional. Current people there, or officials there, like you said, is historical. We have not been very intentional to be able to ensure that we can, come up with policies, performance. However, what we see is that people go into government just to serve their interests, and they are not to be taking enough interest in what I call the common good. So those attitudes and all of that together resulted in what we have today. The government we have today is possibly doing its best to now rise from that and begin to say, I would just have to go through these challenges. If the government and the operators mean well, then hopefully there will be light at the end of the tunnel. We will move forward or to one step, 1, 2, 3 steps, then we move backward. All have been, done in a way that does not show that our people have depth of commitment into what they are there to do as leaders. Hopefully, things will process. what we saw the INEC did in the last election, notwithstanding the noise that came around it, then we have seen how governments are that may not serve us well in the future. Talk about the fuel subsidy, talk about the effect that is the floating of exchange rates, which is a necessity from its policy. That's what the government is doing today is not going to take that away totally, but it can expect a solution to just be just one-off government-made policy and everything is okay. No, it's going to come up with all its ups and downs, and we find a common ground, and that is when we can say we have a better response to all of these challenges. So it's quite a small goal. I don't think 30 minutes is enough for us to talk about all of that.
I understand. We're talking, we are paying attention to, or more or less evaluating the government's response has come up. The distribution of rice have almost been the most expected reaction. Distribute rice, sell it for 40,000, sell it for 20,000 as a result of certain policies. And speaking of policies, and I'm glad you mentioned it, from independence till date, successive government in Nigeria, there are many of these policies that are formulated and implemented over time that there's been a lot of decided to remove fuel subsidy. They floated the naira. Subsequently, they went on. All of these policies have not directly improve the quality of life of the Nigerian people. If anything, it sort of made it worse, although they're telling us that we would see the light at the end of re-strategizing the implementation of these policies. So let's discuss this nightmare of policy somersaults in Nigeria that these policies may cause, because they always almost seem oblivious when the repercussion of certain policies start to appear. Let's talk about
most time is that the public appear to be very impatient. And we have touched on all this, which we call the preparations anyway. And that's why policy making process has stages. You actually bring it out for people to know about. By the time people are becoming aware of that policy, the policy owners, that is the government and the civil servants, would have done a lot in terms of the background work to know how people will react to it, what is the likely fallout of, and with that they can now review that policy to actually fix any gap that may have existed in the process. We just come out and react to it. Reactions are not policy, and that is one thing I would want to emphasize. When government come out and start distributing stuff to people, it's not a policy. It requires a lot of groundwork, a lot of research and study. We have been on this for many years, and it was part of the campaign that they have to deal with this issue. In fact, the way that is that when they brought it on board, immediately they came to power, that is the current ruling party, they shook the introduction of that policy, the two of them at the same time, kind of shook our environment and brought on the attitude, the response to it. And that's why government has come up, responding at almost every issue that came up a bit responsive compared to the government we had before. When an issue is brought on board, you will see them reacting to it immediately. The reaction, and you have such exchange of communication or forward a bit in the scarcity of petroleum products, where we're moving forward a bit, that's what I mean, because it's not totally resolved. Electricity, power costs, as in population, appear to us. We're having a change of economic to appreciate what value is rather than just wasting of our resources. So it's not as easy as we all see it, but hopefully if we continue in the path of engagement from the government side and the government, we will find it.
A public policy analyst and a financial consultant. We're talking about the government's response to the economic reality of the Nigerian people and their decision to distribute rice and other palliative measures in a bit to sort of minimize the consequences of patience is what people need to have so that we can see the benefit of. Maybe we should be patient for these policies to fully materialize into something that will be needed. Supply is available, but the complaint really is no longer about the supply of the commodity. It's about the pricing of the commodity. If it is readily available but holding up, all of these have been linked to problems with cost of operations, especially their energy costs. So as much as we have been able to abate the problem of supply, don't you think that the problem of the pricing, we went from buying at 195 naira to over 1,000 naira, depending on the region that you are. Don't you think this might...
what I want to say to Nigerians today is that we should please continue to focus on value rather than volume. We buy, for instance, if fuel is available, then we know how to create value around it by managing what we have, managing costs, managing how we use it. And at home, you are leaving your home, you understand that your AC shouldn't be on when you are leaving home. Energy cost. So that attitude is, we're not saying that is the best. As we are doing that as citizens, we expect government to live in the same spirit. We don't expect our government to, be living ostentatiously when they ask us to, live within our means. And the situation now is that we must focus on value. Anything that is not our paying 1,000 naira for a liter, you have to understand what you apply it more. The demand will, then prices can go down a bit or find its real value level. That's the availability problem. The next is the price problem. At prices, whatever, we are not getting them. Now we get products, what we need to increase their capacity, and where necessary, increase the logistics with which the refinery, for instance, just started supply last week. So we're pretty too early in the day to begin to environment. You must balance demand and supply. So for now, we're having the supply, the demand is there. Once the supply increases, demand will adjust and things will balance out. So I think we have made a progress on the supply side for now. So hopefully price will stabilize. But on a bit higher, with time it will stabilize, then it will begin to come down. So I will encourage them, period, while we're buying, at the point they were distributing it at parties. So petrol may not be done. You can know what to do with it, and you could use it to create the maximum value possible. So focus will be as well. So things will balance out gradually. So we cannot, Nigerians as well, for their commitment to the nation so far.
It pains me that we have very limited time with you, but before I let you go, very briefly, let's talk about subsidy versus palliative as the last question before you excuse yourself from this interview. The whole point of subsidy removal was to redirect the monies made single citizen of the country regardless of their social class, because the presidency had claimed that the whole subsidy arrangement was only benefiting certain according to the government. But then again, the monies that we have saved are now being redirected into palliative programs. So using it to distribute rice, we're setting up social intervention schemes that is taking the money away from us. Then what exactly was the whole point of the removal?
Okay, thank you. Number one, we'll spend the money.
Yes.
Government has always been good at talking about revenue generation. What government has not been good about. So if you look at the palliatives and all of that, they're all done in a very unorganized manner. And that makes it very difficult for us to the number of palliatives that government and state governments are all coming up with. But one thing is clear to us is that it's been attacked over the years, and that is the local government. So until we go back to that point, which the government appears to be doing now by making the economy. So if the local government and all its units are able to fund support, and they will be able to get the support to them, and the benefit of palliative or support can now be achieved. Somebody in the very local area. And when they do it, they feel it should be done. As we speak today, we've seen several palliative initiatives. The local government structure should function effectively to be able to reach the people, the vulnerable people in the society that need this thing most. And when we want accountability around palliative expenses, of course, we can easily go to the local government responsible and say, for this local government, how much of palliatives has gone out? Who are those that have benefited from it? And that will help us to understand how much we have spent, what Botelius has done. If I read some, they said they did palliative for 18.7 million people in Nigeria, families in Nigeria. You are from this palliative, and they know that they are getting this support because of this, because of the situation government is in. But the lack of coordination between the local government, the state government. So I would want the government to revisit that and put the local government in real position to be able to support people locally, because most vulnerable people will be not the government agencies that we have. They appear to all be in the air, because we are part of the society. I don't know if you have seen people that benefit. I will suggest to the government that we should go back to the local government, coordinate from that point with all the other government agencies, the state government, now the federal government. Not that the federal government will be giving palliative to people in the local level when they don't even know that it's possible. So that's out of palliative situation to a situation where they can move on and create wealth for the nation. Thank you.
Well, thanks of the Nigerian government to the economic reality of the people and their decision to, resort to palliative sharing, all in a bit to minimize the suffering of the average Nigerian born out of the policies that have been made since the start of this administration, combined with all the many decisions that have been made by our past leaders.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Well, again, lots of times people are very busy, and we do the best we can to maximize the time that they have afforded to us. But the conversation does not stop here. Lucky for me, I have a lot of people that reach to me because I'm a very likable person. So he said that I was in trouble, and he thought, oh, let me go and save Sage. And so he's with us here in the studio, and we're going to continue this conversation and, in fact, branch into how security plays into all of this, especially since the DSS has been in the news a lot. We'll talk about insecurity, the response of the government, especially dealing with these security issues that affects our economy, and then just basically talk about all the many other things that the government have done in trying to respond to the economic woes of the country. And remember my subtopic, rice as the presumed antidote. There's a flooding incident, give them rice. The price of PMS has gone up, give them rice. Health is in shambles, give them rice. And people are wondering, why does this seem to be the only medicine that you're prescribing to our many Hydra head? Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you very much for having me. I will listen to your guest, and I do pray in Nigeria that make what the position that any and the mover of the oil sector. The NNPC now is a rep for one individual refinery, whereas Dangote is supposed to be going to NNPC and say, please, I need petrol to sell to some customer. Please, can you assist me? So Nigeria should be praying seriously that the position the NNPC put themselves, may God not make any individual to put himself, because God cannot promote you. Then you now demote yourself. And it's just because sometimes when some people are as head of agency or management of an organization, if you want to take some decision, you have to look in and say, what am I doing to myself to manage? It is only now that the Dangote that you have to go and beg, say you want to do a sales rep.
Oh my God.
so it's just very funny.
And it's so unfortunate. The painful part of this is that people really, really thought that Dangote coming on board will give us some sort of rest, because Dangote coming on board with diesel and Jet A1, especially diesel, the price mess now, we would see a reduction, even if we cannot go back to buying at 195, maybe 400 or 500. People were hopeful at worst 600 naira. But now it seems like the price
that was a tinted hope, because it's just like that it's only one person that's making effort to be selling food for people in Anthony here, and no other person is making effort. I say, what of if tomorrow come that this woman decide that she need rest? Who will give food to people in Anthony? The PNB came. Dangote refinery. This acquisition, Dangote refinery. What if Dangote on his own say I'm a businessman? This is the way I want to do my business. Is it not the same Dangote that now tell NNPC say you are going, the only job that is available for you is sales to
on mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. The topic is evaluating government's response to Nigeria's economic. We spoke to us very briefly about certain factors that we should be considering, reviewing the build-up to Nigeria's current economic quagmire. Moreover, we're now spending in distributing handouts to Nigerians, a consequence that was born out of how the policies that have made problems without talking about our security issues. The DSS have been very, very handy. People protested hunger. Removal of from the 1st to the 10th of August. We still have individuals that are in holding, currently going through trial on the other side of the argument that are saying if you had done what was expected of you, there would be absolutely no need for people to be on the streets. There's no comfortable, happy person that would want to be under the sun holding a placard, chanting for the government to do, would assume that that is exactly how the federal government is responding. And so we want to talk briefly about their own action and how they have responded to the people pushing back to some of the policies of the government. Joseph Fᴜʟᴜ, let's talk about their operations first of all. Oppressing an already oppressed set of people is just pouring fuel on fire. People says instead of employing security operatives to be the one to deal with this issue, our security architecture in Nigeria, talking to the people, or in this case, arresting the people like we've seen. What do you think about the way the security, when it became what it has become?
Okay, let me start with the one bit. Maybe I will offend you a bit.
Please don't.
The reason why I say I will offend it a bit, I want to discuss it. Let's look at the SSS
that recognizes
that
the
give
DSS.
them as DSS, and that's why they operate. They are operating like DSS. They are not operating like the SSS. The reason is SSS. Then when they set them up in the government and the state as in that you must not do anything that will cause crisis in the state. You understand it? And they were doing that very mandate, meeting of that very mandate to Nigeria. They are not doing that mandate again. They now turn to DSS, Department of State Security Service, because what they are not doing, you now do something that instead of you to call police or call Ogafwa, say talk to JDO, you can put a call to DSS, and they will actually come. When you can say CJD is behaving. SSS that protect. If you call them, say they can even arrest you.
It's not their business. It's a civil case.
They will ask you, do you think we don't have any work to do that you are now calling up for something that you can easily
it's a police
resolve?
thing.
You understand it? If you go to many they are attended to, it's actually a case that DSS will attend, not a case that SSS will actually attend to. Because some of those cases they are just private. They will not have business in those countries because they will have enough issue to resolve, and because they leave that core mandate, and that's the reason you can see if a spirit disappear, as I said, we fish out the spirit, and that's the reason some university then they can be in the class, they are trying to gather information, intel on how people will not find a way to destroy the unity, the cause crisis in Nigeria. Even some civil servant, you have SSS. So I will not be making mistake. You will have SSS, be enlisted as in civil service. You have SSS that how you want to destabilize this country. You will just say that one day like this, some people individual will just come and say, "Oh God, please, can you enter this vehicle?" They will question. So that very time, people are being careful. One in what is we are forgetting about SSS. We are not discussing. Now see that Nigeria is in trouble. And that's the reason you see, they say a lot of things. Someone they was saying something that yes, it could be a public servant, but it's an appointee say that he's going to put a fire in a state. DSS will call you no matter who you are. And that's the reason, that's the genesis of all these things that you are not seeing in the country that you not see. Is it a bandit individual? Issue out. So what we're saying is, it is because of that. The world, when we turn to Department of State Security Service, we all lost it completely. They're not born anybody will say you want to. Someone will say I will make a country ungovernable. I will make you go sleep for your house when SSS they there.
Joseph, let's talk about this. The priority of the government with capital expenditure and recurrent expenditure, and I would explain. the monies that we've been able to save so far. They did tell us, and that's why we see an
and
increment in the FAC allocation.
They tell you say they borrow too.
Our debt has increased 121 trillion in the course of how many months? We know that. But then we would expect that if you invest this money in people, and that's why we're suffering. If you're investing in your people, you will spend money on health, you spend money on infrastructure, road, you spend money on things that would affect every single person. But we see them spending priority is what we're questioning at this time, because what you do in a time of crisis can be interpreted as your response to that crisis. So if at a time where hunger is the primary problem, we have a government who is focused,
they look at it that you are not a factor in their day-to-day activities. This officer that will go to Edo State for election, 35,000. They say 35,000. 35,000 personnel.
Yeah.
The SSS will let me follow you. First, they will send personnel. Road safety will send personnel. Just name them. Just for an election that the entire people that was going to cast their vote in Edo State, they are not up to. I don't think they are up to 3 million. You look at the number of security agencies that you are sending there. So what they would have done before now, that there's going to be an election in Edo State so period. Like last year, you finish all your because you still have some security in a police officer in Edo State. What would you do for you to tell them to continue to check their planning, their strategy, and the rest? You don't need to deploy people from almost everywhere to go, and as if the security agency that are in that state vote for any candidate, the candidate may even talk on corruption. Corruption have a department, although they may not be statutorily stated. You understand it, but corruption have a way. There's a way we skill to win in the first. So if you look at the deployment of the way the government for an election that normally within 48 hours supposed to end, let us get budget to how much police will spend. How much when you accumulate, you will not be seen. If you just dash that money to Edo State, they'll say there's no need of election. You understand? So our problem, just as it my state, Edo State, insecurity issue has been a big disturbance, especially my side in Akoko Edo. IGP never visit those but he's telling them that because of the election, there will be area patrol of helicopter, and it means that they don't actually know the reason why they are in election. It's just as if the agency exists for after election, that is the end of the whole story. You understand? Until when we sit down and say, okay, this is the real meaning of governance, then you now translate that information to the security agency. That you don't need. There was a local government election in Edo State. Obaseki did not and a councillor, and everything ended. So it is planning now. All these fire brigades approach to
because of our time, let's talk about census, because we are talking about government's response and how they are prioritizing the problems that we have. Census, how do you plan for a nation if you are uncertain of the amount of people are really poor? Because all we are doing is estimations. There are formulas that you can use, but then you need to know for a fact when you're planning so that we can minimize wastages.
Sage, it is deliberate, because those are the issues that actually aid corruption. Do you know what it means that maybe two of us are in this studio now? We now say, hey, we call Oga Fuad. It's that the way we do things in Nigeria. We need food. We just say that they put food on one pickup. You understand it? And you can only maybe take only one plate or take one blue food.
Or one person will take 7.
Yes, on one person will take 7. Those one person will take 7. They now decide to go to the express and start selling the food that they got free. You understand it? You are discussing the issue of rice. Rice is a political food. Just in form of, how do you call it? Maybe light. It's okay. Let's just take small later when the real food done, and then yam, amala, and the rest of them will now eat proper food. But now a local government rice, governor rice, president rice, senator rice. What of yam? What of cocoa? You understand it? It is because of our. So until when we sit down and I say, okay, the way you rule, you govern a country, the way you govern a state, will continue to.
Very limited time for this conversation, and I want us to talk about what's important. Emergency. The flooding incidents happens to be one of the most prominent emergencies that we have in the country right now. And yes, donations have been always part of the package. But then, since last year, NIMET had told us there would be flood. Please prepare yourself. there's ecological fund. And now our fire brigade approach